like people from the neighborhood were sitting around chatting with each other and knew the bartenders. And I was like,
did everyone stop chatting when you entered and there was an awkward silence?
It went quiet.
Record scratched. Yeah.
And then I ordered a Fuller ZSB, and they're like, "Oh, okay, he's all right.
He's all right." Yeah. Perhaps we'll even talk to him.
Yeah.
Did you get to know any of the locals?
I didn't. I'm horrible about that sort of thing. I just kept to myself, ate my fish and chips, and drank my Fullers. And
oh, that sounds really fun.
Yeah, it was lovely.
And the fish and chips were decent.
The chips were just average, but the fish was delightful. It was the breading was really light and crispy and good.
Last time I had a fish and chips, I had terrible food poisoning.
So you won't be having that again ever.
I don't want to get too graphic, but I could.
Thank you for not.
Suffice it to say, you will not be having
fish and chips
from that venue.
Or chips. Well, I mean, yes.
Well, if I ever invite you to my fish and chips fest, I will make sure there are other options for you.
Thank you. I mean, I think the chips were okay. The problem came from the fish.
Probably.
So I could probably gorge on chips and be fine.
Oh, but Tom can't because he's
when you're eating French fries all day.
I would like to do that with onion rings if that was possible. Eat onion rings all day.
All day?
Okay, not all day for breakfast.
Maybe not all day, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of onion rings.
Also, you might have issues in the digestion.
Rings. Yeah.
Who doesn't? It's kind of
like people don't. People don't. Some people do not like onions.
Who are those? Yeah, but in onion rings,
well,
it's
people that are no longer our friends.
Right, exactly.
They exist. They're still living and breathing.
We have to warn the audience as well. If you ever meet us and we go for snacks and we get onion rings, you'd better eat those rings, or as Sarah said, we won't be friends very long.
That's right. You can't sit with us. Poor Ode. He says, no one's ever given me onion rings.
Well, I'm sure you could remedy that.
I need his kibble. Boo-hoo.
So how many cats do you have?
2.
Okay.
2 cats, 1 dog, 3 animals.
I was expecting Patrick to be disappointed with that answer.
Right.
No, I think
2.
I mean, I think
beyond
beyond 2, you're on a dangerous path to becoming a weird cat lady. I think 2 is still acceptable.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Can we be cat gentlemen, cat lords? What is the male equivalent of cat?
I don't know. I think
crazy cat guy.
Disturbed.
I don't think there's a crazy cat guy. I mean, in Friends, there's a crazy snake guy, whom Chandler kind of hears he will become. But I think the male version of weird cat lady is strange old dude in a wife beater that no
there's
I'm just saying, what if it's a guy who has 14 cats and lives alone and has toxoplasmosis? What do you think?
There's someone like that though.
You know what?
You. It's a French guy who actually lives in Florida, and he actually has a little cat show, like they do with lions and tigers. He has them.
You guys are missing the point. I'm not asking for examples. I'm like, what's the term?
Well, okay,
when I become a crazy old cat.
Why don't we just call him Tom?
Patrick's like, how many cats do you have, Sarah? I'm like, 2, like a normal person.
Right.
I don't have 14. I think that's weird too.
Yeah.
That's way too many cats.
I'm just putting out, it's always crazy old cat lady. Like,
I'm just a normal
not always
lady.
a lady that's crazy with the cats.
No.
I think so.
But also I'm not crazy.
You are
not
crazy. You are not this at all. Yeah, that's for sure.
That's what we're saying. Had you had 3 cats, I think the jury might be out. But.
Whole different ballgame for Patrick then.
Trust me, with 2 cats and a large dog, a lot of people were like, what are you doing?
Yeah, we need to start the show, don't we? Yes. Let me find the name of the person. that I'm going to mention at the beginning of the show. His name is Nick. Be like Nick.
Be like Nick.
I'm going to say his last name, but I'll make a. All right. You guys ready?
Yep.
Yes. I was born ready.
It's been so long since that's good. That makes me smile. All right, here we go. 3, 2. Nick Marvey has supported independent tech news directly for 5 years. Be like Nick. Become a DTNS member at patreon.com/DTNS. This is the Daily Tech News for Thursday, January 24th, 2019 in Los Angeles. I'm Tom Merritt.
And from Studio Feline, I'm Sarah Lane.
And from the cold countryside of Finland, way, way up north beyond the wall, I'm Patrick Beja.
And I'm the show's producer, Roger.
And now Patrick's watch is ended.
Wait, what? What did
you were watching for the show to begin. Now the show has begun.
Right.
No, Tom, it's going to end at the end of the show.
Yeah, right. Watching the
he
tech
still
news.
has another half hour.
Okay, yeah. I'm going to take the black. Let's start with a few tech things you should know.
Last year, Verizon launched a startup called Visible in the US that allowed anyone with an unlocked iPhone to get unlimited text, voice, data, and hotspot usage at speeds of up to 5 megabits per second for $40 per month. No contract, no fees, and no stores as well. Everything is managed through an iOS app. However, the company is launching Android compatibility in beta as well, selling iPhones and Samsung Galaxy phones, all with 0% APR financing available.
Apple has added Microsoft Office to the Mac App Store with a package that includes Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and OneNote. Apple worked with Microsoft to add the ability to subscribe to a bundled app, which needed to happen before Office could come to the store. A subscription runs $69 for an individual or $99 for a household of up to 6 members. Businesses can also order through the App Store and distribute to employees through the Apple Business Manager.
Yeah, that's nicer than having the Microsoft Office update thing interrupt you when you launch Excel to make your spreadsheet for the tax lady. It's a made up an example, not something that happened to me literally 15 minutes
Never.
Texas Instruments, Xilinx, and Lam Research all posted quarterly results Wednesday that seemed to have reassured investors who had been concerned about the impact of China-U.S. trade relations on the chip industry. TI missed on revenue, but it beat expectations on profit. Xilinx and Lam also beat estimates for the quarter, and TI reported weakness in demand in China, for them anyway, is primarily due to the semiconductor cycle. However, Intel came and splashed cold water all over that, forecasting Q1 revenue and profit below analyst estimates. Net revenue for last quarter from Intel rose from $17.05 billion to $18.66 billion, but it missed analyst estimates of $19.01 billion. So good news, bad news.
If 2 announcements make a trend, we might have one. So Vivo announced its own portless phone, the Apex 2019, which it will show off at Mobile World Congress, which is going on in Barcelona later this month. Charging works through a rear-mounted magnetic connector that can also handle data transfer. So not exactly wireless charging, but close. Like the Meizu Zero, we talked about that on the show yesterday. It has an in-display fingerprint sensor and uses the screen as a speaker, and it's also 5G.
Portless. It's the new trend. All right, let's talk a little bit more about what's going on with self-driving cars at Apple. Patrick?
Oh, that's me. Sorry. Sources tell CNBC that Apple has cut more than 200 employees from its autonomous vehicle effort, Project Titan. Although an Apple spokesperson told CNBC some groups are being moved to projects in other parts of the company where they will support machine learning and other initiatives across all of Apple. So essentially in non-denial.
We'd rather you focus on the people we're keeping than the people we're firing.
Back in August, Apple hired Tesla's engineer vice president and Apple veteran Doug Field to head up the Titan team alongside Bob Mansfield.
If I were to read the tea leaves on this, which is part of our job here, I would say this probably means Apple has figured out finally what they want to do with this.
And what would your tea leaves say about that?
Well, for a long time, people have been debating, like, are they going to actually build a car? Are they just going to build systems? Are they going to build a ride hailing service with autonomous cars? What are they going to do? And this, to me, makes me feel like they finally narrowed it down and said, okay, this is probably where we want to go with this. You folks are working on parts that don't fit with that direction. So we're either going to move you to, other machine learning type places where we can take advantage of your expertise in other projects. Or if it's like, well, you were the person who was going to help us actually, build cars, and we're not going to build cars, then, good luck, go find something else to do.
It's the second time, if I'm not misremembering, that rumors of a significant restructuring at Project Titan have happened. The team is, from what we're hearing, much bigger than 200 employees. So it would be unlikely that they have completely disbanded the team. So I would tend to agree with Tom. It's unlikely they're building a car. It might still happen. But yeah, it would seem they now know which direction they want to go, or maybe that's even too much interpretation, but I don't think they're abandoning what they wanted to do with autonomous vehicles.
No. My guess has always been that Apple, even if they hadn't decided on it themselves, would end up providing technology that folks could include in cars, the way AirPlay or CarPlay is, except more so, right? It would be an Apple version of autonomous systems, and that's my best bet for where they end up. We still don't know.
Twitter is testing a new feature to make it easier to know who started a thread when multiple accounts participate in discussion, because it can get a little wild out there. The company says the new original tweeter tag, as it's being called, at least in testing, is rolled out to a small percentage of iOS and Android users, along with account verification. You might think of this as a feature that could help cut down on confusion about who's who. Like if Elon Musk starts some very, very lively discourse on Twitter, you might see some replies. I don't know, maybe that one of the replies is like an Elon Musk fan account or something, where you'd kind of have to look at the handle to be like, okay. So if you know that person is verified, so to speak, I think that's helpful.
Yeah, but I don't think that's exactly what it's for. I mean, yes, but not with the example of Elon Musk, because everyone knows who Elon Musk is. And if there's
TechCrunch uses this example because it's a real world example where people pretend to be Elon Musk, jump in on the thread and say things that confuse people because they think the real Elon Musk is saying it, and they haven't been able to tell right away.
Right, and the conversation is being shared enough that
I understand, but
right.
But yeah, I don't think this is really what it's for. I think this example is not the best one because I don't think people would get completely confused by this case and think, I think this is it. It's more for people who reply to something and then you jump in the middle of the thread and you don't know the person who was originally posting the thing, and so you're not going to notice that they are the one replying, because the threads on Twitter are incredibly messy, which, by the way, is being addressed by another UI element that they're also testing. But it's really interesting. The way Twitter has evolved its UI has always been relatively slow. And if you look at Twitter, like from 3 years ago, actually in the past 3 years, maybe there hasn't been a lot of changes, but it doesn't change significantly from 1 year to the next. But over a few years, it does add a lot of features and a lot of things that help make the product better. But they wait for people to use it a certain way. And they resisted threads for a very long time for very good reasons. Now they've implemented them, but people have used them to start entire conversations because Twitter is being used more, I think, by certain people. And so you need the threads to be a little bit cleaner. And I think this will help. I've complained that Twitter is a little bit confusing, and I'm guessing I'm not the only one, but I think this would actually be a useful feature.
I mean, kind of. I don't understand why people are so excited about this. This seems like a minor feature test, which is nice. I've definitely had plenty of times where I click on a response in my timeline and scroll up to see who started this thread. And this would allow me to maybe not have to do that. Okay. But and maybe I just use Twitter differently than a lot of other people. That is not something I've constantly complained about. Being able to edit spelling mistakes in my tweets, oh yeah, that's definitely something I've constantly complained about. Having better thread management so you can see threads easier entirely, like Patrick was saying, definitely something I've complained about. Having a label that tells me who started this conversation is just a nicety.
And I think this speaks to the way that maybe we use Twitter that other people do not. The conversation aspect of Twitter, I'm like, how'd this all start? Oh, it's a meme now. There's like a million likes, and so many people have like jumped on the bandwagon. That's a real thing.
Yeah.
Maybe maybe it's not something that we're engaging with. But I do often sort of get into something where I'm like, well, how would this start?
Sure.
Let's go to the top.
And I think if you jump in there,
this sort of thing. So I think that would actually be pretty helpful to me.
If you jump in the middle and you see who is the original poster of this thread, it helps you pay attention to what they're saying without having to go back all the way up. It's not as useful as
what they said to start the thread a lot of times. So this isn't going to help me with that.
Yes,
it's basically the blue check verification for I started this thread. That's what it is.
It's the OP original poster mark on Reddit, except
OT original tweet.
Original gangster. Dell announced the Dell 75 4K interactive touch monitor for classrooms. The 75-inch display supports 20-point multi-touch and works either with hands, so you can just touch it with your fingers, or stylus, and they include 2 passive styli with the purchase, styluses. It also has something called Screen Drop, where users can press a button on the side of the display to switch between 3 different heights. That provides accessibility for children, obviously, but also people in a wheelchair, just people of different heights. It's Dell's version of the Microsoft Surface Hub or Google's Jamboard, but focused on the education market, whereas those two are generally focused on the business market. The Dell 75 4K interactive touch monitor, as it is snappily named, is available April 30th for $5,999.99.
Dang. That's a lot.
I mean, it's not for your home. This is the price of a really high-end television, and while schools aren't super rich, if they were a school budget is more able to handle $6,000 than a person home budget.
Truly.
I would be more concerned about the UI and the way it's designed for this specific use. I mean, I'm sure it's running on Windows, but I'm guessing the kind of software you need, maybe there's going to be a market, given that these kinds of screens are being more and more common. But I'm guessing the software would need to be designed specifically, especially if it's going to be used in schools.
It says that it can handle pretty much all software. I mean, that's what Dell says. But they're not doing anything like Google and Microsoft, to your point, to make the best use of it. It's just running regular Windows.
Exactly. And so is there already a lot? Maybe there is a lot of software designed for these kinds of users specifically. But if there isn't, then you're going to have a great screen and not a lot, and it's going to be wonky to run stuff on it, I think.
Well, and it's $6,000 a pop. You're only buying one of these. If your school district's going to buy one, you're not putting this in every classroom. At least most schools won't be.
Well, we talked about headphones and wireless headphones and all sorts of Bluetooth headphones earlier on the show this week. Sources now tell Bloomberg, and this is a good story for us, that Sonos wants to expand to high-end headphones, so getting out of the living room. And the company's potential wireless over-the-ear headphones are still in early development stages, but could be launched by next year, priced around $300.
Does this make you happy because you're a Sonos fan and you've been looking for wireless headphones?
Yeah, I mean, $300 is way more than I want to spend for what I'm talking. Like, I'm talking about stuff that I can run in the rain. These are not those headphones. Like, I'm not paying $300 for headphones. They're going to short out. However, I love Sonos. I do think that their audio quality is top notch. I mean, they're the best of the best. And I I can't imagine that the company wouldn't want to be like, okay, well, we've conquered the living room. Like everybody has their Sonos speakers, or maybe they don't. Where else do we go? And we go to, headphones that everyone needs those.
That's true. You're looking for in-ear, and these are over-the-ear.
Yeah.
This is the kind of thing Sonos needs to do. There was a point a couple of years ago where we were all sort of wondering, is Sonos done? Or, have they been lapped by the Amazon Echoes of the world and Apple AirPlay and such? And they're hanging in there quite well, actually, by embracing all the voice assistants and innovating on their product line with different products that appeal both to high-end audiophiles as well as somebody who just wants something that's easy to use. And this is a part of that strategy. It's an interesting part of that strategy because I don't think of Sonos with headphones, but that's what you do when you're trying to make sure you don't get left behind.
But you do think of Sonos for the most part as high-end audio.
Right. You just don't think about it in your ear.
It's like, you're competing with Apple at that point. It's like, do you not want the earbuds? Well, maybe you want something that Sonos has to offer because it's such high quality.
And the thing is, it's natural for them to expand there. And also $300, if they are indeed high-end headphones, I don't think that's super, that's not so super dissimilar to the prices of these kinds of headphones. Of course, it's not cheap, but if you want some really high-end headphones, most of the time, whether it's warranted or not, you're going to end up paying these kinds of prices. Thinking about headphones like the Bose QC35, either 1 or 2, I think they're maybe even a little bit more expensive. So it seems reasonable. And Sarah, maybe they will be IP67 or 68, and you will be able to run in the rain.
Very stylish with your over-the-ear headphones.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, man. It rained a lot in LA 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
These are the things I think about.
Well, folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, be sure to subscribe to dailytechheadlines.com. A lot of folks in our Slack were talking about this. Saw somebody on Twitter asking about it, and it's making the headlines out there. So I thought we'd do a little bit of an explanation of Google's proposal that a lot of ad block extension makers are saying would stop their extensions from working. This is the kind of story that gets a lot of people's backs up and causes a lot of people to overestimate what's happening. So let's run through what's actually happening. Google has made a proposal. That's the important thing to realize here. Yes, Google is powerful with Chrome, and yes, they could force something through if they want to, but let's just listen to it under the assumption that this is a proposal. This is not necessarily how it will finally be implemented. Google has made a proposal called Manifest v3 that changes how Chrome handles extensions in order to prevent malicious extensions from undermining privacy and security. You can question Google's motivations as we go through this, but there are legitimate things that this proposal achieves, and privacy and security is extremely important to people these days. The goal would be to give users more control over what extensions do and which sites they interact with, as well as improve performance of extensions so they don't slow down your browser. This is all very similar to changes that Apple made to Safari back in 2015. So on paper, you could say this isn't controversial, but it has to do with ad blocking, so let's keep going. Among the proposed changes, no longer will extensions be allowed to load code from remote servers. The extensions would remain static after being submitted and only be able to use the code that was reviewed before the extension was admitted to the Chrome Web Store. That's important. On the one hand, it's very good for keeping bad code out. If you can't load code later, then all the code is under review, and that's the only code you use. There's a downside to it we'll get to in a second. Number 2 among the proposed changes, universal access to all websites can no longer be requested at install. So this makes things a little more difficult for extensions that want to be able to block ads or malicious scripts on everything. And here's the big one. Among the proposed changes are replacing an API called Web Request with an API called Declarative Net Request. Now, don't worry too much about what those mean. Web Request is the existing API. It lets extensions modify requests and modify responses. So it can block a cookie from being set. It can block JavaScript from being executed. And that slows down the browser performance because everything has to be passed to the extension. The extension says yay or nay. Then it goes back to the browser. That slows things down. Google wants to replace this with declarative net request. Now, the other thing that web request would do would allow a malicious extension to look at your cookies and steal session cookies. And you wouldn't be able to do that when you can't add code and under the restrictions of this new API. This new API called net request has the extensions declare the kind of responses and requests they want to be blocked or redirected and say, look for this. And they can use wildcards and stop that. And then the browser executes it. That speeds things up because the browser does everything and it doesn't have to talk to the extension and back and forth. It would also stop malicious extensions from actually seeing the cookies or other sensitive info. They couldn't steal it because the browser is the only one that seals it. All right. However, here's the downside. Developers of ad blockers like uBlock Origin say that if the proposal was implemented, it would stop ad blockers from working because declarative net request doesn't allow for more complex patterns. For instance, uBlock ships with 90,000 filters, can work with 500,000, keeps constant updates so it can keep on top of stuff. And if it can't push code to the extension and it can only use 30,000 items, because that's another part of this API is Google limits it to 30,000, then they can't do things the way they do it now. A lot of folks looking at this have said the syntax of this new API, declarative net request, is similar to that used by AdBlock Plus. And a lot of people are saying, that's interesting. I wonder if Google and AdBlock Plus cooked this up together. A lot of other things besides ad blockers are affected by this. NoScript has said that the new API would not be sufficient for it to block malicious scripts. Makers of anti-phishing extensions have pointed out that the new API only allows plain text blacklists. That would allow phishers to be able to see if they're blocked and then change their URLs. And as we know, with phishing, it's a constant battle to stay ahead. So if you can't encrypt your blacklist, you're at a disadvantage in stopping phishing attempts. All of this has been responded to by Google in many ways. Google software engineer Devlin Cronin wrote on the Chrome discussion list, this design is still in a draft state and will likely change. Our goal is not to break extensions. So I know that's a lot to parse there, but to sum up, the TLDR is Google proposed a change to how it handles extensions that works fine for AdBlock Plus and doesn't work well for a lot of other ad blockers because it limits what they can do, although it has positive security aspects. And Google says, hold on, we're listening to all of these problems that NoScript and uBlock and Ghostery are all saying, and we're going to try to accommodate them.
And Google is saying, despite what you might think, we're not closely working with AdBlock Plus over other blockers. It just happens to be that this is the one that still works the best.
Now, the suspicions come in because Google has a built-in ad blocker. It's already live in Europe, Canada, and the US. It's rolling out to the rest of the world July 9th. And its ad blocker, while using standards from the Coalition for Better Ads, certainly allows the well-behaved Google ads to show up. Whereas, I don't know, maybe some of these other extensions might impact Google ads, which would impact the Google bottom line. So a lot of people are saying this new API is self-serving because it protects your bottom line.
I was going to go all conspiracy theory with this theory, but you stole it from me. So I guess I have to.
I mean, you can pile on.
I can still, I guess.
So, I mean, I just lined out what the thought is. How likely do you think that is?
Well, I think there's no question. This is exactly Google protecting its bottom line and sticking it to the little people who want to use real ad blockers. No, I don't know. But I mean, it all seems very reasonable. I think the minimum we have to do if we're reasonable is wait a few weeks or however long we need to see before it's implemented to see how it's modified, because obviously proposal draft, it will change. And it does have very beneficial aspects. I mean, the fact that an extension could, add code from a remote server is a security nightmare. And that alone seems like a decent way of doing things, although this is not the point that the ad blockers who are complaining are the most strongly complaining about. It seems like something that would make sense. And also, as you mentioned a couple of times, it doesn't completely block any type of ad blocker from functioning. I guess if Google is indeed doing this to protect their bottom line, they're being incredibly crafty and clever and finding ways of making this seem completely reasonable from a certain angle.
It's defensible, right?
It's more than defensible. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So
and I think a lot of people are upset because they weren't included on the conversation. I think that's why you see uBlock with their nose bent out of shape. Like, hey, the proposal is a great proposal. Why didn't you talk to us? And I guess Google's saying, well, we're talking to you now. But,
yeah, exactly. And they are. This is a proposal, is to draft. So it's the process is still early in discussion. So yeah, I can. That being said, if you are uBlock Origin and your entire business model is threatened by this change, I think the thing you do is get on top of a mountain and start screaming for people to pay attention to it. Because if they had just said,
how very French of you to say so.
Well, I mean, uBlock Origin.
You know, that's French. Always on mountain screaming.
But if they had just said, okay, sure, Google, I almost said, okay, we'll discuss, we'll talk. We wouldn't be talking about this now, I don't think. Possibly and so the pressure wouldn't be, I mean, the conversation wouldn't have been so focused on this for, a half a news cycle, and the pressure wouldn't be on Google to make sure that they do what they can to work with the people who are impacted by this, or maybe not as much. So I understand them as well.
The one thing it does shine a light on is Google has outside influence in the browser market. Because Chrome has such a large share of the world market, companies like Ghostery and uBlock feel like maybe this is an abuse of power, versus just saying like, hey guys, in the back channel on the forum, this doesn't work for us, let's revise. The perception is a little harsher when you're like, you are the only court of appeal here, Google. There's nobody else I can go to, because a lot of this stuff cascades down to other browsers through the Chromium project as well.
And it's not just that their their livelihood would be threatened. Likely it would be, I don't want to say obliterated. They could still work it into an ad blocker, but they would have to completely change their product.
Yeah. Well, thanks to everybody who participates in our subreddit. Sometimes you talk about Chrome, sometimes you talk about other things. You can submit stories and vote on others at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. We're also on Facebook. Hang out with us there as well. Facebook.com/group/dailytechnewsshow.
Let's check out the mailbag.
Let's do it. This one comes from John, and he was piggybacking on our mailbag from yesterday's show. And John said, I thought Steve's email on Singapore's comments about an AI framework sounded familiar, and I was right. DARPA is pursuing a very similar area of research, XAI, or explainable AI, which is what it means. Thought this might help justify, not Justin Robert Young, autocomplete, a larger conversation on this topic. And he linked us to something from DARPA itself. We
will not be having a larger conversation on the topic today, but we definitely appreciate sending along the link, and we'll have it in the show notes at dailytechnewsshow.com. But good to know that Singapore, DARPA, and I'm sure there's others. I bet they're deep minds.
I think the European Union is working on something similar.
I would not be shocked.
Gotta be something going on in Finland.
When we say a thing is happening on the show, we don't imply that it is the only thing of its kind.
This is the hive mind at work. People saying, "Oh yeah," Speaking of hive mind, Patrick Beja, we missed you on Tuesday, but thanks for being with us on Thursday. How is life in Finland, and where can people keep up with everything you're doing?
As mentioned at the beginning of the show, life in Finland is cold, but it's also very beautiful. I mean, we're getting a very snowy, lovely white winter. Also very happy to have had Justin and Brian on Tuesday and have them helped their album reach incredible heights. If you want to see what I'm up to, you can go to your podcast app, which you're probably using right now, and search for one of two things. First, you could search for monthly video game briefing, where Scott and I cover the news of the gaming world with an angle trying to discuss things from a casual standpoint, or you could search for Pixels, where I cover the news from the gaming world in a more core gamer way. So either monthly video game briefing or Pixels.
You can definitely
you could listen to both.
And you have to choose both of them.
Folks, we really enjoy the folks who stick around and keep us live, loud, and independent on patreon.com/DTNS as a way of saying thanks. Anybody who stays at their tier for 3 months as of January 2nd, at the end of that 3 months is going to get some merchandise as part of a Patreon beta program. Len's 5-year anniversary art that he made in December to celebrate our 5th year anniversary will go to advisors on a poster or people at the master level on a mug. You can check out the details at patreon.com/DTNS/merch.
And if you have feedback for us, our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're also live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 21:30 UTC. Find out more, tell a friend, dailytechnewsshow.com/live.
Back tomorrow with Robb Dunewood from the SMR podcast. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Muppet laugh.
I'm not sure Brian knew how to take that. It's meant as a
he was like, okay.
Muppet laugh.
No, who doesn't love the Muppets? The Muppet laugh.
Hey, you guys.
It does sound a little bit like a Muppet laugh.
It's a Muppet, yeah. I mean,
in the best possible way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is there any time that you're compared to a Muppet that you're not happy about it?
I mean, in like British phraseology, isn't it
Muppet? That's not a Muppet, is it? Or is there a different word?
We're talking about Kermit the Frog, a Muppet, not a Moppet.
Like, Muppet alternative. So in Britain, it's an alternative for someone who's incompetent.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
I don't think that's what Brian thought.
Yeah,
no. I mean, if you're saying, is there any context where it would be
where someone's like, "Don't call me a Muppet. I'm very offended."
I mean, for example, you're engaged in intimate relationship with a partner, and they start thinking about Muppets. Maybe that's not so flattering. I don't know. It would seem.
Well,
maybe
wouldn't know we were going to that place.
I am not a furry monster.
Exactly. Yeah. Or maybe some people would be.
Stop calling me Cookie Monster. That's not who I am. I'm your wife.
All right, Roger, we are uploaded, and it's time to pick a title. Patrick is being very French, has been suggested. Chrome, if you want to. I'll use Firefox.
Lucy, you started this.
Chrome blocked, Chrome blocker. Patrick piles on. Blocker's gonna block. Twilight of the Titan. Oh, it's very.
Ooh.
Oh, it sounds like a movie.
Yeah. Google proposes changes. Internet becomes outraged.
Yeah.
I like that one.
That's really descriptive.
I mean, but is the internet outraged though? Is there an outrage, or is it just some mild concern?
In certain quarters, there's some definite outrage.
Okay. Yeah, but okay. But is the internet outraged?
Well, yeah, we're losing. We're overgeneralizing for the sake of dramatic effect. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Are you uncomfortable with that?
I'm just gonna vote for Realm of the Cat Lords.
that was pre-show, though. It's certainly the best title, but it doesn't apply to the show.
Cervantes, I see you.
We could call Good Day Internet Realm of the Cat Lords.
Totally. Where'd you go, Luce?
Google proposes changes. Internet becomes outraged. It's a little long too. I don't have anything else I like better.
What do you like, Luce? Sometimes she knows. She says
code blocking code.
That's funny.
Code blocking code. Google might, well, I don't want to use that word Cervantes. Some people might take offense. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I like code blocking code. That's funny.
Done.
I mean, I assumed that what they meant was game, recognize game.
Right. That's what I took it as.
Yeah. And that's funny. Yes.
Kudos. I don't know what it is.
It means if you're cool, you recognize other people that are also cool. Oh. Game recognize game. If you have game, you know when somebody else does.
Oh, right.
Yeah. What do you think,
when
Luce?
I recognize you, Patrick, that's game recognizing game.
That's right.
Is it though?
Of course it is.
It's all relative. You know, the game that you have. If you think you have it,
right.
You have it.
It might be. So. It might be mediocre game recognizing mediocre game.
That's right, but it's still game.
But how about 5 year? How about 5 year game recognizes 5 year game? You got a 5 year anniversary, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There you go. That's a good way to put it. What do you think, Luce?
5 years of Patreon supported podcasting from Patrick Beja.
Mm-hmm.
There was a
5 recognizes 5.
That's good. Cinco Rex Cinco. Now it's getting weird.
Cinco reconocer. Cinco.
Oh, sorry. I had to duck out to see what was causing on the racket on the side of my house.
Oh, you were missing our new.
You assumed you were busily editing the show, and now you've revealed you were not.
I am editing the show.
Was everything okay out on the side of the house?
No, it's just my.
Yeah, what happened out there?
My gardener. He's cutting the hedges, and it's pulling the teeth of the hedge clipper. Grabs and it slaps it back against the side of the house.
You shouldn't have hired the constant gardener because he just never stops.
Well, if he was constant, it wouldn't have to do it as often.
An occasional gardener.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's so loud.
He only comes once a week. He's an infrequent gardener.
Yeah, right. He's pulling out weeds. You'd rather he leave.
Oh, no, I want them out.
Yeah, no, I say that because in my yard we have a weed phenomenon going on. I just pull them out of the ground, but we don't actually have a gardener besides me and Otis. So doing our best. So anybody who was following the pre-show or the post-show last week, I left right from here and went to the Volvo dealership and saw that XC40, and it is so beautiful, but it's huge. It's a crossover SUV, right? Like the whole idea is it's not supposed to be super big. It's big. It's too big for, like, I sat in it and I was like, no, that's crazy. Like me and one little dog. Well, he's not little, but like too big.
Yeah, the crossover
beautiful car though.
Crossovers are supposed to take over the SUV share by basically giving a smaller but just as capable, car. But like you said, they just end up being big.
They're big. Yeah. They're just not as tall, kind of. I mean, once I was inside, I was like, what's the wheelbase of this thing? I mean, it seems like anything that's a larger SUV. I don't know.
Long wheelbase just means you get a smoother ride.
No, I mean like the measurement of the wheelbase. Like what's the wheelbase of this? Because you say it's a crossover, but it seems as big as an SUV, just maybe lower to the ground kind of thing.
Well, technically, it's for auto manufacturers, when they build the crossover, it's based off a car chassis as opposed to an SUV, which is typically based off a truck. Okay. So like a Suburban's based off the pickup truck.
But I thought the whole crossover thing was actually more of a, I don't know.
So the original crossovers
a sedan, right?
Were like the Subaru and Impreza and the Outback, but they found people wanted something that could take the place of an SUV and a minivan, so they had to enlarge it to get more seats in it, so they can do the 3-row seating. But they also make smaller ones, like the RAV4 from Toyota, or what's the Honda CRV? I think
CRV. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Also, it's all.
And there's a Kia Sorento, I think.
The Kia Elantra.
The Kia Cilantro, that's right. That's in the same vein. I'm not really familiar with Kias. There are some folks that really swear by them, or at least this particular model. And Hyundai has one as well. I don't know. It's a whole thing. I guess I know what I'm doing.
Sorry to interrupt. Thank you very much. You are all lovely people, and I love you accordingly.
Yay! Thank you, Patrick. Have a good night.
Talk to you in less than a week.
Play off, keyboard, Pat.
Yeah. See you next Tuesday.
Today, Tuesday. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. You could be Fatso. You could. You're almost there.
Wait,
big old fatty.
Oh, that's I don't know. Do animals care about body shaming?
No. First of all, Fatso created a lot of money. So, let's encourage Lucy to do the same. You look like Fatso and you are fat.
I like to think of myself as big boned feline.
She loves it. She says, fatter the better. What am I doing? Just hanging out all day.
Like my gut.
Sorry, Oat. You're not fat. You're just
too
very,
fit.
Very big.
There will be a time when being
too
fit will be detrimental to your existence.
Because?
I don't know. Maybe you're a threat to the government or something.
Right? You just want someone to be like, don't work out too much. It'll ruin everything. Just hang. What do you think, girl?
She looks like she's doing all right.
She's doing good. Yeah, she's doing good.
Beja, me. Welcome to my island.
Cervantes says he heard Kia got some game now.
And in the crossover space?
Well, I don't know. He just says Kia. He doesn't say crossover in particular. Thea says Kia used to be garbage and is apparently good now. That's interesting to know, because the last time I drove a Kia was probably 5 or 7 years ago in a rental, and I was not impressed. But if they've gotten better.
I've seen a few of them when I've gotten Ubers or Lyfts. And they're nice. It's nice. Yeah. I mean,
they've always looked nice, but the ones I've rented were like just drove like go-karts. Like,
yeah. But would you say that about, I don't know, a Toyota Sentra?
No, I would not.
Nissan Sentra.
A Nissan Sentra, sorry. Toyota.
I would not say that about either the imaginary Toyota Sentra or the Nissan Sentra, either one.
What's the Sentra? Not the Camry, but the Toyota.
We were discussing this the other day in our
Toyota Corolla. Okay, all right. If you're driving a Toyota Sentra, bail out.
It's not a bad car. All right. Thanks, video folks, for watching, and have a lovely day. Audio folks, stick around. There's more to come.